usually a little longer than this, and then a sharpener, which I also don't have, but I'm sure somebody here has one of the little lead holder sharpeners. And then I use a little click out eraser and then a little squishy kneaded eraser. And when drawing, a lot of people use blue line pencils. A lot of people use Tech pencils. With a Tech pencil, I feel that everything's going to end up being sharp and the same kind of line. Whereas with these, if it's pressed down, you're going to get different types of line. Whereas a sharp pencil is going to be just all like one sort of dead line. So that's why I like using this pencil. Can you even see it? This is great.
Just the big lights. Just turn the lights to the left and right at the top, pointing at the paper. Too much off. No.
Is it better? No. Put a base light. Hold on. I just kind of start by laying out the form. And with all this, you're going to try to just get all the movement and the motion, everything. You're not really dealing with details just yet. You're just sort of figuring out where the major figures are going to go and sort of the spacing within the page. So just kind of draw just the major shapes. I usually don't use like the little tubes or anything like that when putting together a body, because the body just isn't built like that. You can't even see what I'm drawing. I usually don't draw like these little things. A lot of people put their, build their figures like that. Can you see that? Yeah. Those little things. Because the body just isn't built like that, so I kind of just work with just the major sort of groupings of the figures, of the muscle groups and such. And then once it's in there, nice and loose, then I sort of have the framework of where I'm going to be going with the drawing. And then from that, you take your kneaded eraser and you erase, which is really going to not show up well since you can't really see anything when it's really light anyway. But the idea is to erase it down to where you can still see the underdrawing on the board itself, but you can draw right on top of it. So if you can see it, shadow it. You're trying to figure out all the different elements of that, and you want to still stay in there and get rough with it. Know exactly where everything is, and then try to then get your personality. Whatever she's going to be looking like. And then at that point, then you would go in and do the finished drawing. So that's kind of how I lay out all the different things. I do the layouts in my little sketchbook. I'll transport right to the board, and then I'll go through these 4 steps. And then once you get all the line work exactly perfect with the pencil, then you go back in, pick a light source. If you want to add blacks, if you want to do rendering, then that's sort of the stage at which I do that. See that? Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. So the different body types you have. You're going to have the sort of the young, and all of the kind of the style that I have is not necessarily realistic, but it tends towards realistics, but it's also kind of stretched out. I kind of stretch everything out a little bit. I don't do 8.5 heads high. I do about 10 heads high on some characters. But one thing is sort of the weighting. If the character's standing there, you want to augment or opposite the hip and the shoulders. This is kind of because that's just sort of how the body stands. When you're standing on one hip, the other shoulder comes up. That's kind of the younger version is not too voluptuous. I'm really trying to be PC here. I don't know where to go with that. All right. So that's kind of the Supergirl body type, and then you have your more Lady Death action, which I don't draw that often. There's a little bit more over the top, a little wider hips. And then huge hair. And then you have your, see if anybody can guess this one. Granny Goodness. That's the first one I was going to draw since she's so hot. Alright, anyway. I think I'm going to open it up for questions, and then I'll probably, definitely the younger someone is, like starting at a little kid, the bigger their forehead is, the bigger their eyes are, the smaller all the rest of their features are. Little ears, little nose, little chin, little mouth, everything else. So if you're drawing, I draw big eyes anyway, but like we'll do like a young aspen here. And then you got just the little eyebrows, and it's all with sort of expression too, like doing a little kid all evil and everything is it looks even more evil because it's just it's not normal. You got Chucky going, but. And then when I'm doing the eyes, there's one thing that with women that you want to make sure that you don't do is draw. You don't want to draw like all the eyelashes individually, even though there might be every single one of those eyelashes really exists in reality. It really looks weird when it's put down on paper. So I kind of group the eyelashes into groupings, so it's more of a shape for the eyelash instead of all the individual eyelashes. Second thing is you don't want to draw the whole pupil of the eye and the iris and everything perfectly, because if you draw it all perfectly, it may all be there and all these little lines and all these little things and highlights and stuff, but it looks really strange when it's drawn out and represented in black and white. So you want to indicate those things. It's all about sort of letting the imagination, same with the clothing, same going back all the way to the theme I had originally. The more you leave to the imagination, the more your mind's going to come up with something better than somebody can put on paper. So you just kind of lead them in the right direction with the eye, just by sort of indicating that there's like highlights underneath it, and it just looks more interesting. And then you have the sort of eyelash shapes, and there's my. Then you put in the little details, and then really evil eyes, and a happy little tree. All right. So back to the little girl. Now their noses are usually shorter. Like you just take a face and compact it. And you guys, oh, little cute little asses. And then bigger forehead, little ears, little chin. Kind of mongoloid. So, I don't usually draw with a Sharpie that much, or with one of these contraptions, just like Star Trek. Alright, so little mongoloid baby asking, but usually a little more of a button nose, but the lips can start getting a little bit more full. And then, the face is still kind of thin and lean, not too much definition. So you just round things out. Like this one is it's almost just a big oval. This one starts having a little bit more of the jaw, a little bit more of the chin, and then smaller eyes. And there you go. And then as you get older, you can start putting in more definition into the face. Like Grace is much older than Aspen, so with her, you get more of the firm nose, and from the front it's not as easy. And again, with noses, you don't want to draw like the whole nose. So the more lines you put on a woman's face, or even anywhere on the body, the older it makes them look. It makes them look wrinkled or anything. So you don't want to draw the whole nose and then put the little lines that come down from the mouth. And then have all the lips there, and then draw like the nose line and then the eyes. It's just the more you leave to the imagination, the better. So just sort of indicate, like on this one, you just kind of indicate where the nose is. Just little things. So you can just do just the nostrils, and maybe just a little indication on the top of the nose, and then the lips. But yeah, just with all the eyes, if you start doing all the little lines that really, that do exist, but don't necessarily exist in black on your face. I mean, they exist in like little shades, and like the lines that are here are little shades, but they're not like black lines. So that's what you really want to be really careful with. You can have the colors to add those things later, if necessary. All right. Or just lunging forward. And again, when I would lay all this out, I would lay it out like I'd lay it out like this. Really, really rough, and just get the motion of what was going on, and make sure it all. So you got the right arm going forward, and in Kung Fu they used to teach us that when you punch forward, you pull the other one back as hard as you can, and it turns your stomach, it turns your chest, and you punch further. So when you're drawing, you got to think those things. And when I did a lot of stuff with Nottingham back in Witchblade, I was taking a lot of like sword forms and different things that I knew when I was doing Kung Fu. But that's when you're doing, that's the most dynamic, and it's also going to be the most power, which is also the best thing to draw, is because you want to draw the most dynamic. So the right arm's going forward, and you're stepping forward with the opposite foot. So if you're going to do a punch, then right arm forward, right leg back, and then pulling this end back. It could be back in a fist like this, or it could be up ready to punch again, or it just could be out, however you want to do it. And again, you don't do your layouts with a Sharpie, by the way. But that's just sort of the general idea of getting that fluid motion, so it feels like there's a direct line into what you're going into. And so that's just one of the sort of punching things. It's kind of got like the over the shoulder look is. I've drawn 1,000 times. Yeah. Then you got. Let's see if the body's forward, but then you twist. So it's almost sideways. Just the more torso twist, the more you're going to feel more real, and it's going to also keep your drawings from looking stiff. That looks nothing like what I was trying to go for, but. All right, let's see another pose. Let's try foreshortening. Foreshortening poses are usually the most difficult. The one angle that you want to be really careful with on women is the upshot, because it tends to not look as attractive when you have the huge thighs, and then the smaller features up here don't look as good on a woman as it does on like a bad guy. So you want to be really careful with that. The foreshortening is always something that, let's do like sort of a down angle. When laying this out, I'll always draw through the figure as if you're drawing in 3D yourself, and you're drawing like around. And here's where you do set up the sort of the tubes and blocks and such, but I still sort of set it up in the form of what I'm doing, and always sort of draw through the back side of whatever you're doing as if you're drawing around B. It's going to be much less. And a good rule of thumb too is if you're standing there and you wanted to draw somebody on the ground laying next to them, use the body size feature that you have of her feet and draw like a person, like with those size feet. Let's see if that looks right. I mean, would the person be that small standing in front of this person? Probably not. It looks like their legs are like 300 feet long. So that's a good rule of. That looks like a good rule. That's a good rule of thumb to tell if you're drawing the body sizes the right shape or not. Is like take a feature mid figure and then draw a human sideways right next to him, and then see if it looks right. And that's just kind of a nice little rule of thumb. Okay. And just sit there when you're on the phone someday and sort of practice sort of throwing lines that curve this way, lines that curve different ways, like pulling lines to you. And then when I'm doing the hair, I'll just do that. You know, I'll have a head, and then I'll just kind of throw out some hair, and then I'll just bring it back in. Is it too loud?
No, it's too loud.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Keep talking.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Wah 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 wah. Alright. So that's with the hair, and then you take your eraser. Use your eraser as much as you use your pencil when you're doing hair, so you get the overlays of hair. I'll draw all the different things in like this, and get a good sort of base for the hair, and then I'll take an eraser, which you can't do with a Sharpie, but you take an eraser and you just kind of draw a line right over the top, and then you'll go and you'll fill in the hair on the top of it, so you have the one strand that goes across the rest of them, and then is erased. Or you can do the strand, take an eraser and erase the inside of it, depends on whatever you feel like doing. And that's going to get the flow going in those directions, and then against those directions. That's for the long, the long hair. The short hair is easier because it's obviously less flowing. But then you can. I like doing it in groups too. You don't want to draw every single little hair out there. Just because again, that's the same kind of thing with the eyelashes. You want to just sort of draw groupings of hair and then let the reader sort of fill it in. That looks terrible, but weave it in and out and have it be swimming through the water a little bit. And I do think all these weird things when I'm drawing too. I'm like, oh, your little hair is going to be swimming that way, that way. And I start making weird facial expressions because I keep a mirror right in front of my thing. And if I'm drawing somebody that's all upset, somebody walk by the office and go, why are you all pissed off? I'm not. I'm just drawing this guy. But so that's, I mean, and then with curly hair, it's curly hair. I also think in groups, and just sort of group the different hair like this, and then you also want to do the layers behind it, and then you draw the hair in front, and then you go behind, and then it creates sort of a different, you know, all these different levels to it. And then if you have, you know, a mohawk, you really want to think about how the mohawk. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of
I'll just be making shapes, and it's a really good thing for when you're doing like rendering lines, and just kind of practice moving the pencil like this, and then practice moving the pencil back like that, and just keep doing shapes, and then I'll just draw out weird little shapes, and then bring it down and do all these little things with it. So you're practicing kind of a grad technique with different stuff. And then just kind of take little things and just start making stuff up. I've got my sketchbook's full of little things like that where you're just creating grads with different things. But these are all like things you can just do when you're on the phone, and it's going to help you be better for your inker, at least, because all your lines will start being a lot more crisp. Practice long drags, long pulls of lines. Can you guys see any of this? Yeah. Okay. And you practice going from right to left, and then pulling back left to right. So you're practicing all these different things. So then when you're drawing, you don't have to draw one particular way all the time. Your hand will start learning how to do all the different things. So you can pull back this way, and then push back that way, and then pull down this way, and then draw this way, without having to turn the paper and do the same kind of line every single time. It's good inking lessons that I actually learned this from an inker, and so it's things that made his job easier over me is when my lines were cleaner, so he didn't have to do as much interpretation. Comes in. You want to make sure that you don't do like a real heavy indentation there into the thigh. Like that, just to me that looks weird. And unless it's I just like more of a smooth kind of flow to it, and it's all about, you know, the stomach and the back and everything that forms it. It's not just the actual itself, but. And then just really study the muscle groups that go into the back of the legs and the thigh muscle. And when you have like the thigh muscle the leg is basically formed like an arm, but just longer and reverse. So this is going to be, the bicep, and this is the, the tricep. The knee is the elbow, and then, the arm itself. But that really doesn't help with your butt. Okay. So like from a back shot. Alright. When drawing the back too, it's like you get the coming down the spine, and then the two sort of muscles on the sides there. A little. What'd you do today? I did butt drawing. Alright. I'm going to put a bathing suit on this real quickly. Okay. Alright. And again, when you're laying this out, you sort of lay out the shapes, lay out the leg muscles kind of coming out of it. Get all the information there, and then it's really all about the least amount of lines as possible. Like just draw. Sweet.
Sorry.
That's okay. Now we're gonna miss a call with that. All right, so get all the information there, and then again, the least amount of lines, the better. So you really want to make sure that the outline isn't lumpy. Again, when you have lines that aren't clean and fluid, if you just kind of have lines that are kind of choppy, it looks lumpy and not attractive. Coming to kick me out right now. No. I was just in the middle of my butt routine. Buns of steel. Buns of Sharpie. Right. And when you're doing the really clean, smooth line, making sure that somebody's not walking on the stage.